This is East Asia Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jill Newbronner. Here are tonight's top stories. China and Japan slam Israel after troops fire warning shots near a delegation of foreign diplomats in the occupied West Bank. Tokyo calls the incident extremely regrettable. Beijing rebuffs Taiwan's foreign minister in a row over the island's status as it reiterates an eventual reunification with the island. A setback for North Korea's Navy ambitions as a serious accident damages a warship just as it is launched. Leader Kim Jong-un calls it a criminal act and that it has also wrecked the country's pride. Blocked by its own court, London fails to transfer sovereignty of Chagos Island, home to a critical US-UK joint military base, to Mauritius. Also on East Asia tonight, the impact of America's foreign aid cuts are felt all across the world. As one great power withdraws, could another take its place? And South Korean captain Son Heung-min lifts Tottenham Hotspur's first trophy in 17 years after his side beats Manchester United in the Europa League final. China has condemned Israel after its soldiers fired warning shots at foreign diplomats visiting the occupied West Bank. They were officials from at least 20 countries, including China, Japan and Russia.
中方高度关注相关事件，坚决反对任何威胁外交人员安全的行为，要求开展全面调查，避免类似事件再次发生。一段时间以来，约旦河西岸的形势持续紧张。中方敦促有关方，特别是以色列，不要采取任何进一步激化矛盾的举动。
Japan also voicing concern over Israel's actions.
このような事案の発生は誠に遺憾であり、あってはならないと考えております。政府としてはイスラエル側に抗議するとともに、説明と再発防止を申し入れたところでございます。
The incident took place near the city of Jenin. An EU diplomat said the group had travelled to the area to see the destruction caused by Israeli military raids. Israel says it, quote, regrets the inconvenience. It said the delegation had strayed from the approved route and entered a restricted zone. So its troops fired warning shots to steer the group away. 4 Canadians were part of the delegation. Prime Minister Mark Carney calling the shooting totally unacceptable, saying Israel's ambassador would be summoned for answers. 2 people have been shot and killed outside a Jewish museum in downtown Washington, D.C. The Israeli Foreign Ministry has named the victims as Yaron Lischinski and Sarah Lynn Milgram. Multiple police and emergency vehicles have been deployed to the location. The U.S. Homeland Security Secretary has posted on social media that the victims were Israeli embassy staff members. Israel's ambassador to the U.S. says the young couple who died were engaged to be married. FBI Director Kash Patel says that he and his team have been briefed on the shooting. Attorney General Pam Bondi and U.S. Attorney and U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Janine Pirro, were also among those at the scene of the crime. The shooting occurred at the 3rd and F Streets in Northwest, and that's an area with numerous tourist sites. It is near the Capitol Jewish Museum, an FBI field office, and a U.S. Attorney's office. Eyewitnesses told CNN the shooter pretended to be a witness to the incident. He received water from the security guards who were trying to comfort him. The man then reportedly asked the police to be called. Washington, D.C.'s mayor has reassured the community that there is no active threat following the shooting. Reactions pouring in fast. U.S. President Donald Trump has taken to his social media platform Truth Social to send his condolences to the families of the victims. He has claimed the attack was based on anti-Semitism. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has also expressed his shock by what he called the horrific anti-Semitic murder of the embassy staff. He says security will be ramped up at Israeli embassies worldwide. Israeli President Isaac Herzog and U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio both condemning the incident. Mr. Rubio says the U.S. will track down those responsible and bring them to justice. Germany, France, the UK and the EU have all condemned the violence. Nick Harper with more on the shooting.
Police have reported that a suspect is in custody, and they already seem to have quite a detailed timeline of what took place. They say that this suspect was seen pacing outside of the Capitol Jewish Museum in the heart of Washington, D.C. Inside was an event taking place, being attended by various members, including the two members of the Israeli embassy here in Washington, D.C., who were shot dead. Now, we're told that they exited the event inside the museum. They were in a group of 4 people in total, and police say the suspected gunman walked up to this group of 4 people, produced a handgun and started shooting, killing 2 people, a man and a woman. They then say the suspect entered the museum, where he was detained by security, and they also say that when he was detained he started chanting "Free, Free Palestine." He's been named as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez from Chicago. But the suggestion very much with that chanting taking place, and there does appear to be video that's been posted online on social media, it does appear that this has the potential to be a hate crime killing, deliberately targeting these 2 Israeli members of staff from the Israeli embassy here in Washington, D.C.
Now, the UK High Court has blocked the government from transferring sovereignty of the Chagos Islands over to Mauritius in a last-minute move. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer was expected to attend a virtual signing ceremony today with the Mauritian government, but a court injunction on the deal has been granted after an urgent overnight hearing. The agreement would have seen Britain hand back the archipelago to Mauritius and pay to lease a key US-UK military base in Diego Garcia. That's the largest island. Under the High Court ruling, the UK is now required to maintain jurisdiction of the islands until further order. This comes after a legal challenge by 2 Chagosian women, according to the BBC. Now, Chagos Islanders have said that they were never consulted over the handover agreement. Now, let's get more. Ollie Barrett's joining us live from London. Ollie, for those of us not familiar with the case, what was the reason given for the UK government being barred from giving up British sovereignty over the Chagos Islands?
Well, effectively, the court ruled in an interim way that the government had to pause handing over sovereignty so that there could be a further court hearing. That further court hearing was due to take place around now. What is unclear is exactly what will flow from that new court hearing, or indeed how long a pause this might end up being on the British government's plans. As you were saying, this case brought by Chagosians who were raising concerns about their human rights and were raising concerns about the lack of consultation with Chagosians, many of whom are here in the UK, and about their ability to return to their place of birth, or indeed the place of birth of previous generations of their families in future if this deal were to go ahead. This is deeply embarrassing for the UK government because, as you say, a whole range of choreography had been set out for the day in which Keir Starmer was due to join a virtual signing ceremony with Mauritian colleagues. The House of Commons was due to be updated later today on the deal itself and exactly how it was going to work and when it might all kick in. Chagosians from the community here in Britain were due to be meeting with a government minister to explain some of the finer details of the arrangement as well. It's been long delayed up to this point. It was agreed some weeks ago, it seems, and there was some concern that it wouldn't be accepted by the Trump administration, but then Donald Trump signalled his approval. Also suggestions that the Indian government is very in favour of this arrangement going through, for example. But for now, we wait to see what comes out of the courts and exactly how the UK government is going to be able to proceed or otherwise.
And why it's garnering so much attention is because there's a significant joint military base between the US and UK on that island. Can you talk to us a bit more about that and why it sparked such controversy?
Indeed, that base is central to this whole deal. Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, has been making the case that actually the arrangement to sign sovereignty of the Chagos Islands over to Mauritius is crucial because he says it actually safeguards for the long term that base on Diego Garcia. We know that it is a key strategic location in the Indo-Pacific for American bomber fleet. Also, UK bombers have been used from that location as well. Both countries have carried out bombing runs in the Middle East, for example, from Diego Garcia. During the process in which the UK government was making the case for this deal, among some, in the face of some strong criticism from opposition parties here in the UK government talked about the access to the electromagnetic spectrum which comes from the island and the fact that that might be in danger if this deal wasn't carried out and further challenges to the UK's sovereignty over the Chagos Islands were to be forthcoming from that. It's also thought to be a key communications hub in the region, in the Indo-Pacific region for the UK and the US. Beyond that, a lot about this base is very, very secretive indeed. And so that's been one of the difficulties for the UK government making the case about why safeguarding the base is so important, because it frequently tells us it can't tell us much about why it's so important for national security reasons.
Understand. Thank you, Ollie. Ollie Barrett reporting live from London there. Now, South Korea's military says the North's Navy destroyer is now lying sideways in the water after it failed to properly launch into the sea from a dry dock. North Korean state media, KCNA, earlier reported that an accident occurred during a ceremony yesterday to launch a new warship.
한미정보당국은 북한 청지랑의 대형 함정 진수 동향을 사전에 추적 감시하고 있었으며 측면 진수가 실패했다고 평가합니다.
A North Korean leader, Kim Jong-un, who witnessed the failed launch of the 5,000-ton destroyer, called the mishap a criminal act that cannot be tolerated. He also said it tarnished the country's dignity. And this satellite image shows the new North Korean warship docked at Chongjin's shipyard days before the accident. KCNA says a loss of balance caused sections of the bottom of the warship to get crushed. It did not mention any casualties. Mr. Kim has ordered the ship fixed before a key ruling party meeting next month. An analyst believes the accident may have happened due to a lack of experience in launching large vessels.
이러한 사고가 발생을 하고 알려진다는 것은 북한에게 있어서는 상당히 치욕스러운 일일 수가 있는 것이고요. 그래서 아마도 북한은 연내 다시 최연함 진수를 보여주려고 할 것이고, 이외에도 그동안 8차 당대회를 통해서 북한이 자신들이 능력을 키우겠다라고 얘기한 그런 무기 체계들을 전부 올해가 넘어가기 전에 공개하고 과시할 가능성이 높다고 봅니다.
Coming up on East Asia tonight, the world's largest PC maker Lenovo's fourth quarter profits plunge 64% as it braces for tariff headwinds. And later, we look into the dynamics triggering an interesting twist in the global automobile market, with hybrid cars winning the hearts of consumers over pure EVs. That time in the show to bring in Roland Lim to tell us all about the business news. And Roland, we're looking at global automakers that appear to be taking a leaf out of Toyota's strategy to focus on hybrids. They're a finicky lot, aren't they?
Yes, they are. But rightly so. Not long ago, it looked like Toyota had fallen dangerously behind EVs. But in recent years, EV sales have slowed and consumers have been flocking to hybrids instead. I'll be explaining the various factors at play in a bit. But first, Italian billionaire Gianluigi Aponte's family-run business, a key investor in the group seeking to buy CK Hutchison's ports. The Hong Kong company revealed this at its annual general meeting, but added that the sale will not proceed until vetted by authorities. The group of investors seeking to buy the ports also involves U.S. investment firm BlackRock. The deal, worth more than $19 billion in cash, includes 43 ports. An earlier Bloomberg report says that the deal is structured such that the 2 Panama ports will come under the control of BlackRock, while the remainder under the Aponte family's firm. The deal was hailed as a win by President Trump, as it would return Panama Canal to American influence. However, the proposed sale has met with opposition from China, and the market watchdog is reviewing the transaction. Equity markets in the region reflecting investor concerns over the fiscal health of the world's largest economy. Stocks on mainland China reversed early gains and ended lower. Shanghai Composite ending the day down by 0.22%. Second bourse, the Shenzhen component, down by 0.72%. Meantime, the Hang Seng Index benchmark Hong Kong stocks are down 1.2%. Gains in banks and miners outpaced by concerns over the U.S. government's growing debt, with a focus on President Trump's tax cut bill. Japan's Nikkei closed at a 2-week low as investors turned risk off after sharp declines on Wall Street. South Korean shares fell more than 1%, tracking Wall Street's overnight losses. In the forex space, well, the yen strengthened against the dollar. It is currently stronger by 0.17%, 143.42 yen, changing hands with a dollar. Meantime, the Korean won, well, that is weaker by 2/3 of 1%, 1,382.86 to the dollar. Meantime, Bitcoin hitting a record high. The price of the digital currency rising beyond 111,000 mark. It is well above the last high of 109,000 set in January. Now, the surge comes on the growing industry optimism for more clarity on digital assets. Lawmakers in Washington are closing in on agreeing to rules that will provide a regulatory framework for stable coins. Now, these are tokens which aim to maintain a steady value against the dollar but sit outside the regulated banking system. There are other factors at play as well. Easing trade tensions between the U.S. and China, as well as Moody's downgrade of U.S. sovereign debt, is prompting investors to seek alternative investment sources to the dollar. The world's largest personal computer manufacturer, Lenovo, reported a sharper than expected drop in fourth quarter profit. The tech giant attributed the weakness to losses on warrants and lower profitability in its infrastructure services group. Quarterly profit fell 64% to $90 million, missing estimates. Despite profit drop, revenue did rise 23% to around $17 billion, exceeding expectations, driven by personal computers, smartphones, and AI computer sales. For the full fiscal year, revenue grew 21% on year to $69 billion, beating forecasts and marking the group's second highest annual revenue in its history. And net profit was up 36% on year to $1.4 billion, but fell short of estimates by more than 5%. Its shares closing down 5.4% in Hong Kong today. The Chinese PC maker faces possible headwinds amid trade uncertainties. While China is the primary manufacturing base, the Americas make up 34% of Lenovo's revenues in the last fiscal year, leaving it particularly vulnerable to U.S. tariffs. Lenovo says its global manufacturing footprint and diverse supply chain gives it flexibility to adapt to market changes and to navigate uncertainties. The global auto industry is shifting gears again, with hybrid vehicles gaining momentum as the EVs begin to slow. According to S&P Global Mobility, new vehicle registration data show that year-on-year EV growth through the first 9 months of 2024 plummeted 80% as compared to the same period in 2023. Another report from E&Y shows that while globally those looking to buy an EV rose from 55% in 2023, it was up to 58% in 2024. Demand is leveling off, having increased from 30% to 55% between the period of 2020 and 23. A series of concerns are holding prospective buyers back, with lack of charging infrastructure topping the list. Several automakers, including Stellantis, Toyota, Volvo and Volkswagen, have scaled back their electrification targets. Sales of hybrid electric vehicles seen more as affordable compromise between the all-combustion as well as the all-electric that have meanwhile increased.
So the trend is gaining traction in the world's largest auto market, China. Hybrid cars accounted for almost half of new EV sales last year, with several producers revving up development and production to meet growing demand. Well, for more on that, let's turn back to Roland Lim, who is right next to me now. Roland, first of all, explain the pivot that we have been seeing from Asia's top car makers.
Right. So this is a global rethink. It's not exactly an abandoning of EVs, but rather more of the adjusting of the timelines and the strategy. As you know, EV growth has been plateauing. Those that want EV cars already have them. Therefore, the next wave price-conscious buyers. That's one thing. And then, of course, there's still the infrastructure charging gaps. There's still the range anxieties caused by EV cars. And not to mention, EVs are still expensive to buy as well as to make. EV batteries, if you didn't know, actually account for 30 to 40% of the selling price of the car. So the battery is what you actually buy. And on top of which, it also makes it cheaper for automakers to actually make hybrids as opposed to EVs. So those are some of the factors.
Yeah, that explains a lot. Toyota, for example, never really jumped all in on EVs like some of the others. What was the thinking behind that strategy?
Right. So Toyota started the hybrid trend with their Prius model. So they've actually doubled down on hybrids. So much so that their target now is by 2030, all of their core models will be hybrids.
Yeah.
So they're going to forego petrol vehicles altogether in many major markets. In fact, we had Toyota's chairman, Akio Toyoda. He actually said that the silent majority of the automakers isn't truly convinced that the world is still ready to go full electric. So they have what is known as a multi-pathway strategy. So they're building EVs, they're building hybrids, they're building plug-in hybrids, they're even building hydrogen cars for the future. So, and that's worked out pretty well for them because 2024, last year alone, Toyota did sell, it saw its hybrid sales growth some 60% over the previous year. So it's working out for them.
Interesting. Well, one car maker does not a trend make. So let's talk about Honda. They're changing course too. What are they indicating?
Yes, Honda a couple of days back had a big announcement. So yes, they had ambitious EV plans. Japan's #2 car maker even teamed up with General Motors in the US for EV infrastructure there. But news flow out of that was that a couple of days back, they decided no, global sales for Honda for EVs, we're going to slash that from 30% to 20%. What was more striking, that the fact that their EV investments, they're going to be slashing that by a third. And they're going to take that money and put it into hybrids instead. The reasons for that, well, it's very simple, because there is demand for hybrids. And it is cheaper for them to make hybrids. So that's where the profitability is. So that's what they're going to do.
All right. So Japan car makers sorted, but how unique is their approach? I mean, do we see other car makers, leading car makers in Asia following suit, like South Korea?
Yes, South Korean automakers, Hyundai and Kia, they've also had success with EV models, Hyundai, especially with their Ioniq 5, that was a bestseller for them. So they are also seeing that demand growing, especially in markets like the US, South Korea, and emerging Asian markets. So they are also slowly pivoting towards hybrids now as part of their diversification portfolio.
Okay, last question. If I'm holding stocks, shares in Toyota, Hyundai, whatever it is, am I still holding on to them? And what's the future like?
Well, analysts are actually quite bullish about stocks like Toyota or even Hyundai. Toyota's focus on hybrids, for example. Toyota just reported 2% year-on-year Q4 increase in their operating profits. And that's thanks just because they sold more hybrids than anybody else. JP Morgan is predicting a 26% on-year rise in sales growth for hybrids for Toyota for fiscal year 2024-25. So the company is in a very strong position for hybrids. Hyundai also recorded record quarterly profit recently. And analysts are saying that Hyundai's stock credit rating should be high because it's currently undervalued. It has strong earnings per share, and it also makes for an attractive investment.
All right, I'm hearing you and all that. Thank you so much, Roland Lim. Still to come on East Asia tonight, the foreign ministers of China, Pakistan and Afghanistan have discussed deepening cooperation between the countries. Our correspondent explains how and what Pakistan stands to gain. And Dutch Foreign Minister Casper Veldkamp also in Beijing, meeting his counterpart Wang Yi. More on that in just a bit. You're with East Asia tonight, and here are the headlines we're following. China and Japan alarmed after Israeli troops fire warning shots at a delegation of diplomats visiting the occupied West Bank. Tokyo calls the incident extremely regrettable. North Korea's Navy ambitions on the line. A serious accident has damaged a warship as it was being launched. Leader Kim Jong-un calling it a criminal act that wrecked the country's pride. And the UK fails to hand over Chagos Island to Mauritius after a last-minute court order. The archipelago is home to a critical US-UK military base. China has called for greater regional stability in a recent trilateral meeting with Pakistan and Afghanistan. Beijing is encouraging Islamabad and Kabul to enhance diplomatic relations. The formal sixth round of talks between the parties is scheduled to take place in Kabul. Now, the recent talks have been focusing on enhancing connectivity across Central Asia, with Beijing agreeing to finance a railway linking Pakistan, Afghanistan and Uzbekistan. And as part of Phase 2 of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, a highway will be built between Pakistan's Peshawar and the Afghan capital of Kabul. Now, this will further improve access to Central Asia and make full use of Pakistan's Gwadar port. Hira joins us now with more on this topic. First question to you is, what are the main outcomes of the informal trilateral dialogue between the three countries, Pakistan, China and Afghanistan?
Well, just a short while ago, Pakistan's foreign minister was holding a media briefing in which he mentioned that the topic that dominated the discussions between the three countries, Afghanistan, China and Pakistan, was terrorism. As we do know that Pakistan is fighting a war on its western borders, and Pakistan blames Afghanistan for hosting a terror groups that target the Chinese nationals who are working on China-Pakistan Economic Corridor projects in Pakistan and the Chinese investments. So in that context, he said the three of the countries have agreed to form a mechanism in countering the growing threat of terrorism, as we do know that Pakistan's western provinces are home to significant Chinese investment, especially when we talk about Pakistan's southwestern province, which is Balochistan. It is home to Gwadar Port, which is being built and funded by China, and similarly the Gwadar International Airport. So terrorism was something which dominated the discussion. Apart from terrorism, the three of the countries also discussed about upgrading the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project, and in which Pakistan's foreign minister stated that Beijing has also expressed its interest of including Kabul in this project under the spectrum of Belt and Road Initiative. And in that context, CPEC Phase 2 will be launched soon, in which China will help Pakistan in connecting a railway link which will be running from Afghanistan's capital Kabul to the city of Peshawar in Pakistan, which is in northwest of the country. Apart from that, he also said that China has agreed in principle to finance the railway link that will connect Pakistan, Uzbekistan and Afghanistan in a bid to reach to the Central Asian republics. And experts say if this happens, it will not only help with regional connectivity, but it will also help Pakistan in stabilizing its ailing economy. Also, apart from this, Beijing has encouraged both Kabul and Islamabad to improve their diplomatic relations. And in that context, China has encouraged the two countries to exchange the ambassadors, as we do know that currently both the countries have consulates in each of the capital, but that are being led by charge d'affaires, but there are no ambassadors. So these are the topics that were discussed in these informal trilateral talks.
Seems to be a significant agenda for what's being described as informal dialogues, as you mentioned. But there is also an upcoming Pakistan-China strategic dialogue soon. How will that take the talks forward? What can we expect?
Yes, Pakistan's foreign minister confirmed today that China-Pakistan strategic dialogue will be held in Islamabad, and Pakistan has extended an invitation to Chinese foreign minister, and he will be participating in this dialogue. What we're hearing from the experts here in the capital, that what can we expect from this strategic dialogue, is that China is not only helping Pakistan in setting up special economic zones, but also is urging the Chinese companies and investors to invest in Pakistan. So the progress made so far on this front under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project is something that is going to be discussed, as we do know that Chinese company BYD is opening its manufacturing car production plant next year. So this is something which is going to be discussed in this strategic dialogue, along with the regional security situation, as we do know that tensions between India and Pakistan are still running high.
Thanks, Hira. Hira Mustafa reporting live there from Islamabad. Dutch Foreign Minister Caspar Veldkamp is in Beijing at the invitation of his counterpart Wang Yi. The Chinese Foreign Minister, in his opening remarks, said Beijing is willing to step up on interactions. Mr. Veldkamp said before his arrival in Beijing that cooperation between both countries is critical, especially at a time of what he called a shifting geopolitical reality. The foreign minister's visit comes as Chinese investments in Europe are on the rise and as Dutch exports to China fall, in part due to U.S. restrictions on sales of its high-value chip-making equipment to Chinese companies. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has rebuffed Taiwan's Foreign Minister Lin Chia-lung, who said yesterday that Beijing had no authority to decide whether the island was a country because Taiwan chooses its own government.
台湾从来就不是一个国家。有关言论只能暴露出某人的狂妄无知，是赤裸裸的台独挑衅。世界上只有一个中国，台湾是中国领土不可分割的一部分。
The Foreign Ministry told reporters today the People's Republic of China is the sole legal government representing the whole of China, and that this was recognized internationally.
台湾的前途只能由包括台湾同胞在内的14亿多中国人民决定。中国终将统一，也必将统一，这是任何势力都无法阻挡的历史大势。
Relations between both Beijing and Taipei have been strained since leader William Lai took office a year ago. Beijing calls Lai a separatist and has rejected his multiple offers for talks. China has in recent years stepped up pressure on Taiwan, both militarily and politically, to assert its claims. Let's look at other news now, and US President Donald Trump has called his own administration's cuts to USAID devastating. The agency is responsible for much of Washington's aid programs across the world, but has been gutted after the leader took office.
It's devastating, and hopefully a lot of people are going to start spending a lot of money And I've talked to other nations. We want them to chip in and spend money too.
Mr. Trump was commenting on the impact of aid cuts on the African continent, but effects have been felt worldwide. His officials had said that the move was aimed at wasted funds. Some observers say U.S. aid cuts of this magnitude are effectively a soft power surrender to rival power China. CNA's weekly current affairs programme, Insight, looks at the impact of Trump's foreign aid cuts on the US and the region. In the case of Cambodia, this has affected mine-clearing operations.
There are estimated to be 4 to 6 million landmines and unexploded ordnances in Cambodia. Now, it is up to D-miners to take on the harrowing task of clearing these explosives.
យើងត្រូវកាត់ព្រៃសិនកាត់ព្រៃម្ដង50សង់ទីម៉ែត្រពេលដែលអ្នករាវមីនឃើញអាមីននោះយើងភាគច្រើនវាមិនបានឃើញក្នុងភ្នែកទេព្រោះវានៅក្នុងដីឬក្នុងសម្រាមណា
Cambodia has one of the highest concentrations of landmines in the world. They were laid during the Vietnam War and later the civil war between the Khmer Rouge and the Cambodian government. Yet more were planted when Vietnam entered the fray to oust the Khmer Rouge.
ចឹងយើងលើកឈើក្រិតមួយទៅដាក់កន្លះម៉ែត្រខាងមុខចឹងបានយើងចាប់ផ្ដើមរាវពេលដែលរាវអត់មានឮសំឡេងឬក៏មីនអ្នករាវហ្នឹងលើកឈើក្រិតមួយទប់គប់មួយគ្នាដើម្បីភ្ជាប់នេះហើយយើងកាត់ព្រៃបន្តទៅទៀត
The Cambodian Mine Action Center, or CMAC, is the largest of 4 national mine clearance operators in the country. Over 3,400 personnel are hired in this sector.
I received that call to close down on Saturday, 25th, in Cambodia, and take us around 10 days or so to clarify what we should do, what we can do, and send some stuff at home and keep, let's say, team leader safeguard of their equipment and so on, and tell the communities that not enter the areas that we not yet complete our clearance. So we don't want the children blow up by the landmine or nukes.
The Trump administration's foreign aid freeze comes as the government pursues an America First policy. It accused the USAID of wasting and abusing taxpayers' money.
USAID has a history of sort of ignoring that and deciding that there's somehow a global charity separate from the national interest. These are taxpayer dollars.
I mean, President Trump has an America First agenda. And no, development is very hard to say. Giving aid in Laos, in Cambodia, across Southeast Asia, helps families in the United States. It helps the United States. And that's why USAID and development is so easy to go after politically in the United States.
Several days after the cut, food and life-saving assistance was reinstated. Other groups must submit requests for a waiver. The organization supporting CMAC successfully applied for this, and funding was restored. For now.
We are very pleased to hear that they released their funding and our waiver is granted. But we still not sure for the future.
While the CMAC was lucky, not all waiver applications were successful. By March, 5,200 out of USAID's 6,200 programs were eliminated.
Through the U.S. assistance to the kingdom and to other countries in the world, the U.S. influence has been expanded. But when it comes to the freeze of this kind of assistance, I think most people feel very skeptical about the role played by the U.S., about the positions that the U.S. will be upholding. So I think this will more or less have the negative impacts to the U.S. image as a whole.
belief in America as a force for good has fallen. According to 26 out of the 29 countries surveyed by Ipsos in an April poll. As the US withdraws, its rival could be poised to fill the gap.
If you look at the number of funding we receive from China, around 4.4 million US dollar a year, and the Chinese government have a 3-year commitment to CMAC since year 2003.
China has played an important role in humanitarian sector as well. You can see that during the COVID-19, China has sent a lot of vaccines, COVID-19 vaccines, medical team, medical equipment to Cambodia. And it also play an important role for post-COVID economic recovery.
The Chinese strategy or approach thus far has been very much about BRI, loans and investments. So it's not clear yet what the Chinese will roll out. If they do intend to do this, it will also depend on the willingness of regional countries to accept it, what the terms are going to be.
A 2024 report by China's Ministry of Commerce put the annual average amount of Chinese aid from 2013 to 2022 at $3 billion, a tenth of what America spends on international assistance every year.
The USAID gap, without that funding, there isn't going to be a replacement for it. Other countries right now are going through economic recession as a result, in part, of the trade war that's occurring between the U.S. and China. Will China step up more than it is doing? I mean, on the margins, maybe. The Japanese have been extraordinarily beneficial in terms of the aid and development they have been doing in Asia, in particular in Southeast Asia. Doubtful that Japan is going to be able to give more.
So, will countries like China and Japan fill the gap? Catch the Inside episode, Trump's 100 Days Aid and Asia. That's tonight, 22nd of May at 9 p.m. on CNA. You can also catch up on CNA Video on Demand or CNA's Insider YouTube page. Well, the U.S. President's Trump Organization Family Business has broken ground on a luxury housing and golf course project in Vietnam after the ASEAN countries fast-tracked approval for it last week. The U.S. President's son, Eric Trump, and Vietnam's Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh held a groundbreaking ceremony on Wednesday for the $1.5 billion project outside Hanoi. Eric Trump is also meeting Ho Chi Minh City officials today to explore plans for a skyscraper in the southern business hub. All this as Hanoi is separately negotiating tariffs with Washington. Vietnam was hit with some of the highest U.S. tariff rates of any country at 46% currently on pause. The Trump Organization has luxury golf projects in the country from Indonesia to the Middle East.
Nghề chính của chúng em là nghề làm cây giống, thì hàng năm bọn em vẫn thu nhập, nói chung là bọn em thu nhập đều lắm. Mà bây giờ mất giá thế này thì bọn em cũng nói chung cũng vui mà cũng buồn anh ạ.
Phấn khởi chứ, được có nghĩa Đảng và Nhà nước mang những cái dự án này về thì đời mình, đời các cháu sau này thì nó sẽ sướng. Nhưng mà mình trước mắt thì cái kinh tế những người mà hết cái lứa tuổi lao động thì là nó cũng chật vật về cái kinh tế thì là nó cũng có khó khăn.
Coming up on East Asia tonight, South Korea's Son Heung-min is finally a champion after Tottenham Hotspur beat rivals Manchester United in the final of the Europa League. Record-breaking floods in the Australian state of New South Wales have claimed 3 lives and prompted the evacuation of more than 50,000 people. A natural disaster has been declared in the regions hit by the deluge north of Sydney. The floods have been described as a 1-in-500-year extreme weather event. More than 300 people have been rescued from their homes, flooded homes in the past 24 hours. Entire towns have been cut off as the fast-moving deluge engulfs roads and washes away bridges and homes. Thousands of properties are without power. Authorities forecast more heavy downpours and damaging winds could hit in the coming days.
problem for us is twofold. Firstly, there's been 2 days of incredible rain. Tararee's seen 1 month of rain in 24 hours. The second problem we have with the weather is that we're expecting dangerous winds to hit, if not on the weekend, then early next week, which is the last thing the mid-north coast needs. Obviously, no one wants that, but it's an indication of the fact that we're not out of the woods.
Forecasters are warning that the deluge in low-lying areas could continue, tracking south towards Sydney. Some parts of the state are expected to receive up to 200 millimetres of rainfall through tomorrow. The New South Wales government has stepped up relief efforts, deploying some 2,500 emergency personnel to help stranded residents. Workers have been using helicopters and boats to rescue people from their flooded homes.
We've got an incredibly volatile situation. I said a few days ago that this will break some records, and these aren't the records that you want to break, but we've seen more rain and more flooding in the mid and to north coast area than we've ever seen before. We've seen an impact that's affecting the tens of thousands of people.
Now let's check the headlines from media outlets in East Asia. Kyodo News says Tokyo residents won't have to pay basic water charges this summer. The city is bracing for extreme heat, and the local government is hoping a discount will help people keep costs down. Japanese capital has seen scorches in recent years and an increasing number of hospital admissions, even deaths, due to heat stroke. A Xinhua report says China is seeing an increase in their rare and endangered wildlife numbers. More than 200 species across the country are showing population recovery, including overwintering water birds, which saw a record high number last year. The Korea Herald reports that civil groups in South Korea are calling for a complete ban on the online sale of whale meat, saying major e-commerce players are turning a blind eye to an illegal trade. Whaling is banned in South Korea, but the meat can still be sold if the animal is caught as bycatch. Critics have long argued this is a critical loophole. English football team Tottenham Hotspur's South Korean captain Son Heung-min is finally a champion after his side defeated fellow Premier League competitors Manchester United 1-0 in the final of the UEFA Europa League. Striker Brennan Johnson scored the only goal of the match in the 42nd minute. Son Heung-min is lifting a trophy for the first time in his 15-year European career. It's also the first time in 17 years that Tottenham has won one. After the final whistle, Son hugged one teammate after another, the South Korean national flag draped over his shoulders. He is the fourth South Korean player to win a UEFA Cup or UEFA Europa League.
I stay here around 10 years because I want to win the trophy because nobody done it. So maybe it's the hardest way, but maybe it's the wrong way. I don't care because I want to do these things, you know. And I'm the type who always want to have challenges. And today, I think before the season started, nobody believed we're going to win the Europa League, but we did it. And as a captain of the club, so proud of this team and proud of the players, and well deserve it.
Happy moment. And that's East Asia Tonight this Thursday. Don't forget headlines anytime at cna.asia. Also look for us on Facebook and YouTube. Bye-bye.